The stove is heating up. Now we wait to see what AJ Preller will pull off for the Padres in the weeks and months ahead. This is the On Friar podcast brought to you by NBC 7. Pleased to be joined, as always, by Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. How do we find you on this Thursday afternoon, Derek? It's been a busy day for you already.
It's been a fun day. Good stuff. We got the house Christmas decorations are up. Everything looks like a Hallmark village is thrown up in our place. So everything's good. How about you?
Good. Yeah, our twins were like into Halloween, like crazy about Halloween. Really the first Halloween that they've really enjoyed and grasped. And so we were wondering about like the post-Halloween hangover with them, and their grandmother, my mother-in-law, gave them Santa hats on November 1st. And they've been obsessed with those Santa hats. And the first few days, I was like, all right, we're walking around the neighborhood in our Santa hats. I was like, is this too soon? The nice thing is, back half of November, which I feel like this month is flying by, almost Thanksgiving, you're seeing more of the decorations and people get into the holiday spirit. So it's been nice. It's nice.
Oh no, we typically have our tree up like November 1st or 2nd after all the
Nice.
Halloween comes down. But this year we had a little travel to do, so it had to be delayed a little bit.
Well, still ample time to enjoy the merriment. And yeah, next week is Thanksgiving. Again, November's just flying by. I can't believe it's almost Thanksgiving and Christmas around the corner. What gifts will AJ Preller provide Padres fans this holiday season? We will find out. And again, some early rumblings just across the league now that we've kind of, the GM meetings are behind us, coming up on winter meetings. We're getting into that mode. So we'll share some thoughts on that and some other topics. Appreciate OG's a sponsor of the On Friar podcast. Appreciate all they do for On Friar and the NBC 7 sports team. If you need a place to watch college football Saturdays, NFL on Sundays, NBA, NHL throughout the week, whatever your sport of choice, hit up one of OG's many San Diego County locations. Great menu. Always doing specials, always updating their menu, and an awesome beer list. So appreciate OG's. Thanks for all they do for NBC 7 and the On Friar podcast. Without further ado, the welcome music. It is the On Friar podcast brought to you by NBC 7. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. And Derek, I was just kind of waiting for there to be some big Padres news to break this morning when I got up and checked my phone and throughout the day, because last week we, of course, had the news with the Seidlers deciding to explore their options, a potential exit plan as owners of the San Diego Padres. And I feel like the Yu Darvish news, obviously, Mike Schilt, just been that kind of off season, just kind of waiting for something to pop. Now, unfortunately, there was a bit of news on Wednesday, which was sad, unfortunate news. I think, it's obviously the passing of Randy Jones. I think what is neat about a day like yesterday is just like the overwhelming amount of like nice messages and remembrances and tributes to a man who certainly deserves it. And so like the initial news, obviously a gut punch, but yesterday felt in some respects like a celebration of his life and a life and a career that should be celebrated. I know you spent time with him and talked to him. When you heard the news, what first kind of came to mind for you?
I stood in my kitchen sobbing for 20 minutes, which my wife can confirm. I might not make it through this. RJ was one of a kind, just an absolute wonderful human being. I used to, when I was doing the Padres pregame show, I had a segment with him every game. And we would just sit there and rap before and after. And anytime I saw him around the clubhouse or around the yard or even walking around downtown or even at Randy Jones barbecue, the man always had a kind word. He never did not have time for somebody who wanted to talk baseball, for a Padres fan, for anybody who wanted to say hi. If you didn't have Randy Jones's autograph, it's because you never met the man, because he was so giving of himself and his time. Considered him a friend, and that one hurt.
It did for you and for a lot of people. I was not one of the fortunate ones like yourself who really got a chance to spend time around RJ. But always present at. I think one of the most impressive things is like you go through video of like community events. We get these emails all the time, who's shown up and that sort of thing. Like
Randy's there.
RJ was
Yep.
a fixture at these community events. I know
Mhm.
he was involved in a lot of different areas, and a guy that could have very easily just kind of like enjoyed retired life, been around for the fans, taken some pictures, mix it up with the team. He didn't have to be as involved in his community as he was. And I think that's one of the things that was really impressive and such like an important part of his legacy, like who he was as a guy, his how available he was to the media, like you said, to fans, and then for other people, the less fortunate. He always seemed like he was wanting to help people out, which is really, really neat.
Yeah, he gave of himself a ton. He really did. He was telling me how fortunate he was to be the same. It was the Padres who drafted him. He got to be in this community. He spent the last 2 years of his career with the Mets and came right back to San Diego. Like he knew when you get sometimes you maybe you're born other places or you grow up other places or you have your formative years other places, but you get to a certain spot and you're like, this is home.
Hmm.
And San Diego was home for Randy Jones. And you're right, he was the epitome of a San Diego Padre. He was, I mean, not just a fantastic player and an amazing pitcher. And I mean, we haven't even talked about how great he was on the mound yet, but he's the way that he did things and went about life and the way his attitude about everything and that big boisterous laugh at the end of every radio hit, he'd go, yeah, you enjoy the game. And he would say the same thing to people he saw walking through Petco Park. Hey, how's it going? Good to meet you. Yeah, sure. I'll take a selfie with you. Hey, you enjoy the game. Like everybody's walked away like with a little more pep in their step when they got a chance to meet Randy Jones. Like he rubbed off on everyone in the best way possible.
Yeah, and you mentioned what he did as a pitcher. Also, like a good opportunity to go back to that 1976 season as well as 1975. There's a case
Tom
to be
Seaver
made.
stole Cy Young from him. Yeah.
Yeah, could be back-to-back Cy Young, and 75 might have been, look at Baseball Reference, like an even better, look at like OPS plus and some of these other things, an even stronger season than his actual Cy Young season. And the numbers, it's just like, it's funny looking at the numbers. Obviously, the game has changed, but he was an expert on the mound at that era in baseball. People talk about Pete Rose and how he struggled to hit Randy Jones. The
Oh,
workload
yeah.
averaged over 7 2/3 innings per start. It's just the numbers are incredible.
Pete Rose, as a switch hitter, usually a hit right-handed against left-handed pitchers. He couldn't do it. He said, "Screw it, I'll hit left-handed." He tried that. Like he could not figure out Randy Jones. It was just the funniest. It was the most amazing funny thing. And that AJ Cassavell had a really good stat that was amazing. How quickly Randy worked. In the last 50 years, there have been 18 games in the Major League Baseball that are 9 innings that have been 100 minutes or less. Randy Jones started 6 of them. That's 33% of the quickest games of the last 50 years. RJ was on the mound. So just
It's
the man, he
unbelievable.
came out. He used to tell me, God, if I struck you out, I'd look at you and be like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
I'm not trying. He never tried to strike anybody out. He was trying to get the quickest, softest contact he possibly could find. Gave up like 0.4 home runs per start in his career or something like that.
For
Like
9 innings, yeah.
it was insane. It was insane because he wasn't a big guy. He didn't throw hard. His fastball, he couldn't break a plane of glass with that four seamer. It's why he never threw it. It was sinker, slider. I mean, he was a true savant of pitching, right?
Mm.
He went 68 straight innings without walking somebody. That was a record that stood until Greg Maddux beat it. Like it's insane. The guy, when you start looking at the career and the things that he did and the names that are next to him in some of the accomplishments he had, there it is. It's the best of the best of all time.
Yeah, no question about it. Already
Yep.
people in the comments. Rest in peace, Randy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 93 strikeouts and 315 innings in 1976.
And the 92 were accidents. I guarantee it.
A 2.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. I looked it up just out of curiosity. The lowest for a qualified major league starter this year was like 6+, more than double what he did. He was just one of a kind. He did it his way. He did it darn well. And, again, just kind of revisiting that era of baseball, what it was like, the workload for these guys, because it's so different from what we see now and so cool. And it's one of the cool things about baseball is like, I feel like in baseball, the evolution of the game is celebrated a little bit more than like, in basketball, you hear people talk, well, he played against plumbers, he played against plumbers and firemen. You know what I mean? There's not the same level of like respect and appreciation for the way the game has kind of grown and developed. Whereas baseball, you look back at those guys and it's like, that's really cool. What a stud he was during those years, especially those 2 years in particular. And a guy that you could just count on. 40 starts that 1976 season, 25 complete games, pitched through 10 innings twice. It's just remarkable stuff. And so cool that Randy Jones got to be a Padre and then, a Padre the rest of his life, but such an important part of the community and touched so many lives. And that was just kind of a neat thing to see, along with the sadness yesterday.
Yeah, 35 was one of a kind. He truly was.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Knew we needed to start there.
Gotta get that out of the way in the beginning, because that's a tough one, man. That really is a tough one. He was awesome in every way.
He was. All right. It feels like I thought last week was going to be our first kind of like off-season episode, and then there was the Seiler news, so that kind of pushed things back. This now in the last week, you have the qualifying offer, that business at hand taken care of. Michael King, Dylan Cease, they are free agents now. You hear some rumblings. There's even been some moves. You're seeing some players get DFA'd. So there's baseball business happening with the winter meetings, about 2 weeks away.
Yep.
Anything in particular of interest? I mean, obviously King and Cease went about how we planned. We maybe had like a slim prayer that Michael King would be like, 22, 1 year, stick with Ruben Niebla, prove a deal and cash in next year. No such luck there. Probably won't be able to get either one of those guys now at this point. There's a good chance both of them price the Padres out. You get some draft compensation.
We knew that was the case with Cease.
Yeah.
I mean, Cease. He was never going to be back here. He's a Scott Boras client. He's always going to free agency. He's always declining the qualifying offer. He's always going for 9 figures, which is what he's going to get. So that was never in question. Michael King was the one we could hold out at least a little bit of hope on because of the injury history, because of how he's worked with Ruben Niebla, because of just how he fits in that Padres clubhouse. So his agent is obviously telling him, from talking to people around baseball, he's going to do better either on an average annual value or a total number than 22 million, which if that's the case, then he's probably not coming back to the Padres. Or if he wants just a longer deal with more guaranteed money, but over a longer period of time, he wants that 4-year contract, 4 years at 85 million. I think that would be something that probably he's right in the ballpark for doing. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if there is still the possibility that door is open with him. If not, he's going to be a stud somewhere else, man. That kid's going to be really good as long as he stays healthy.
Really, really good. And it's interesting. Like there's also Chip Rock's chiming in. Why do I get the feeling that Kyle Hart is the Padres' biggest signing we're going to get before 2026 starts? Heavy sigh. I don't think that's going to be the case.
Kyle Hart signed on. World Series Express has left the station. So maybe I got this at a conference. I thought it was kind of fun.
Maybe
national train whistle.
That should be. We'll have to do that whenever there's breaking news. Whenever there's a trade, big move, fire up the whistle.
Or Vuvuzela, because we got the World Cup coming back.
No, that's true.
I have one of those too downstairs. I'll spare you all that one.
Do you really? I think we'll get our fill of that. I think next summer. Kyle Hart. We'll see what type of role he lands in. I do think, and I was talking to somebody about this recently, like how different. Now, last year you had Darvish, King, Cease, Randy Vasquez, Matt Waldron before Pivetta. So there was more in the cupboard, so to speak, than what the Padres have at the moment. With Musgrove coming back, Randy Vasquez, Nick Pivetta,
perhaps
Kyle
Johnny
Hart.
Brito.
Perhaps Johnny Brito. Yeah, that's another one of the big questions. But there are some similarities to last year because we weren't sure how much they could spend. We weren't sure if there was money to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And at least from my perspective, there was one bit of news that completely altered just everybody's outlook and the vibe around the team. And that was when they signed Nick Pivetta, because like, oh, they signed like a real major league pitcher. And we knew that there was potential. We didn't know just how good he would be in 2025. Obviously, they had to, work the contract in such a way that they could make it palatable last year. And now they're going to, I think he's up to like 19 or something like that this year. But that, I think, alleviated some of the stress. There was obviously all the Roki Sasaki stuff. There was the lawsuit and all that. It was just kind of a stressful downer of an off season. And then they signed Nick Pivetta and like, okay, they can actually do some business. They brought in a useful arm. And so that gives me hope now for this year with some money coming off the books. Like, and AJ's been really good at that, at Michael Waka, at Seth Lugo, even Nick Martinez coming over from Japan a few years ago, being a really useful arm that they could use in a variety of different ways. If there's one thing AJ Preller has done, like he's found like useful bargain starters and turn them into really, really good starting pitchers. And some of those guys were one and done. Fortunately, that's not the case with Nick Pivetta, but that's one area where I'm like, can he find a power hitting first baseman? I don't know. We'll see.
Kazuma Okamoto. Yes. Go get that guy. I love that guy.
We'll get to him, but I know he can find you a starting pitcher.
Oh, he's got a long track record of doing that. He's got a long history of doing that. And that's something that the Kevin Towers was actually really good at, the late great Padres GM back in the day, because he knew he had Darren Balsley. So he'd go out and get a John Garland or an Aaron Harang and kind of bring him off the scrap heap and bring him in, and they would have one really good year working with Darren Balsley. That's what they have now with Ruben Niebla. You can bring in a guy who's got some, maybe there's a metric that they think can play. He's got spin on this pitch. He doesn't use it very often. We'll bring him in here. We'll get him in the PLNU pitching lab, and we'll make him hone in on that, and he can be a really effective starter for us, even if it is for 1 year as a bargain basement kind of guy. Seth Lugo, perfect example. They turned him into the starting pitcher. Who was an all-star, was in a Cy Young conversation for much of last year with the Royals. He would never have had that happen had he not been here with this ball club, changing basically the way that he does things as a pitcher. They're going to find that guy. Cody Ponce maybe be that guy coming over from the Korean baseball organization. There's somebody in Luke Weaver. Maybe it's Luke Weaver, moving him back from a bullpen into a starting role if they want to sign him back from the Yankees. There are dudes out there who they have an idea, looking at some metric that most people are not looking at, kind of like modern day Moneyball. There's an inequity in the market. They think this guy has something that nobody else is looking at. They'll bring that guy in to hone that at a very cheap price, and it'll pay off for them. We know that's happening. We just don't know who that guy is yet.
No, absolutely. And so I think that gives us some confidence. And like, again, last year they had a little bit more to play with than we anticipated. And based on what Eric Grupner has said, they're going to kind of play in the same area. They want to finish top 10. I think, one thing Kyle Glazer has said to us in the past is like, historically speaking, World Series winning teams are in the top 10 in Major League Baseball in payroll. Top 15 at least gives you a chance. Now, obviously, you got teams like the Dodgers who are sort of kind of doing their own thing and making it a little bit difficult. But that at least gives you some hope that, okay, we're not going to completely drop off here. We're going to stay competitive. And now it's going to be incumbent on AJ Preller to get creative like he's done in the past.
Finding those people, man, you got to find those pieces. And he's certainly been better at it with the pitching staff than he has been with the position players. As good as Gavin Sheets was last year, he was a great addition. It's not worked terribly, well, not nearly as well with the bats as it has with the arms. And again, I do think a lot of that has to do with Niebla, because AJ will like, hey, look at this guy. Ruben takes a look at him. Now I don't see anything there. Hands in the next guy, shows him something that I can work with. So if we can find the hitting equivalent of Ruben Niebla in this organization, that would be awesome.
For 1 year, we thought we had, and now a year later, Victor Rodriguez is gone. So,
yep. Why is Albert Pujols or Adrian Gonzalez not the hitting coach by now? Come on, people. Get it together, Craig.
That's a good question. When do they usually announce their staffs, by the way?
December-ish, January, usually about a month and a half before spring training starts. So it should be coming up in a month or so.
Let's see. They did it December 6th of last year. Now, Schilt was coming back, So maybe a little bit easier to piece that together. When did they do it? In 2024, January. So took a little bit longer when they had a new head coach and Mike Schilt coming in. So that could factor in. But, they do have, you would assume, Ben Fritz, Ruben Niebla, among others, returning. And so it's not a complete overhaul. So hopefully we'll get some answers on that topic before too long. Back to Chip Rocks. My biggest concern is that out of pure desperation from the front office, we're going to push both Morahone and Miller into the starting rotation, regardless if either actually wants to do it.
They won't make a guy do that unless he wants to.
Yeah.
That's because if you're going to make that big of a change, the guy has to be bought in, right? Michael King wanted to do that. Seth Lugo wanted to do that. They got a history of guys who want to do it. If Morahone wants to go back to being a starter, I'm not sure why he would, because it just never worked for him as a starting pitcher. It was even looking back on his minor league game logs, it's like 3 1/3 innings is the norm for him. I don't ever see him going 5. So I'm not sure if because he had injury issues. I think he's probably found a really good niche for himself as a left-handed dominant reliever. Mason Miller, on the other hand, he very well could want to go back in the starting rotation. And he's a guy who, remember his rookie year, very beginning of it, he was a starter. And then he had the little elbow injury issue, and the A's are like, we can't leave 103-mile-an-hour fastball on the bench, put him in the bullpen. And he became the dominant relief option, closer option that he is now. But that was only like 2 years ago. So he could very well want to work his way back into a starting rotation spot. And again, the guy who gives you the blueprint, who's had all the success in the world in doing that, is Niebla. So if anybody can guide someone through that kind of a transition, that dude's sitting right in house right now. So he'd be the one I would look at as that's probably the more likely option.
100%. Yeah. Morahone doesn't make any sense to me because, it took him a long time to kind of like find himself at the major league level. And part of that time was exploring every spring early in the season whether or not he could be a starter. And it seems like we've kind of answered that question. Now, maybe he unlocked something or discovered something as a reliever that he could use to kind of ease that transition. But I think when you started to come into your own in 2024 and were an all-star and lights out in 2025, I just don't know if I would mess with that when, like you said, Mason Miller didn't kick the tires on that role quite to the degree that Adrian Morahone did. It felt like we kind of got an answer on Adrian Morahone as a starter, whereas we haven't on Mason Miller. And so, and I went back and listened to what AJ Preller had to say on the topic, and he was like, yeah, we'll see how the roster shakes out. We'll have those conversations, and we'll certainly hear Mason Miller's perspective on things. So I think, to your point, like, I don't think they would strong arm him into that. And that's a relationship you're going to want to be good. You have him for a few years, and hopefully you have him for a few years beyond those few years. And so, but that to me is interesting. I would love, Mason's such a quiet guy that just, whatever the team needs me to do, I'd love kind of like, Penny, for your thoughts, like really know how he feels about that and his level of interest. And I think more and more like that could become one of the really interesting storylines, questions this offseason, because clearly they need help in that department. That's a guy who is an incredible talent. How does he have to adapt his game to throwing 90, 100 pitches as opposed to, maxing out on I guess the immaculate inning, he wasn't pumping gas, but you know what I mean? Like going hard for 3 to 5 outs, being able to throw, 104.5 miles per hour. What does it look like now as a starting pitcher? How does he kind of adapt to that? It's a big question. And part of me is curious about it. It's like, I don't know if I don't know like how I feel about it at this moment. I'm curious as all get out, though. If you could just run a simulation and see how it goes, like I would love to know. I find it fascinating. Still not entirely sure how I feel about it, though.
Major League Baseball did just run a simulation on that, and its name is Paul Skeens. Skeens came in his rookie year, and he was max effort. 101, 101, 102, 100, 100, 102. And then what did he do this last year? He dialed back a little bit. He was sitting at 98, 99. Now, he could still reach back and get that 102 when he wanted to, but he didn't do that. He dialed back and was able to go a lot deeper into games because Skeens is naturally a big dude. Mason Miller is naturally a big dude. So when he comes in as throwing 103, 104, yeah, it's because he's doing it for 25 pitches at the most. He's not going trying to throw 100 pitches and get through 6 or 7 innings. So if he comes in, if he learns to come in and go, it sounds crazy to say easy 99, easy 100, dial back, throttle back a little bit, because that's what's still plenty hard enough. And then when he's got a guy 3-2 and needs to reach back for 104, that's when he's got it in the tank. I think he could very well become a starter. He just has to learn how to not be maximum efforts every single pitch, just like what Paul Skeens just did to great success.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter that, his most devastating pitch is probably the slider.
The slider, right. Which again, he throws that thing at 87, nice and easy. I think that was the thing that Noah Syndergaard never learned. And that's why he flamed out so quickly. It was, he was 101 and then 92 on the slider. He threw everything so hard, and he just physically could not get himself to dial back and sit down and use some of that stuff when he needed to, instead of using it all the time, and his arm and his body paid the price for it. So if you can use that as a cautionary tale and get Mason to, again, sit at 98, 99, nice and easy, smooth gas, and then go up and get it when you need it, I have no question he can move into the starting rotation with pretty good success and not worry about, not have major injury concern.
Yeah. Jason asking, we don't need to re-sign or Rise. We need a power hitter. What are the chances we can get Alonso?
He would sign here. I know people say how much Pete Alonso likes San Diego, and he's always hit well in this park. For whatever reason, he sees the ball well here. He hits well at Petco Park. So he would come here. Will they ante up for him? That's going to be the question, because he's looking at 24, 25, 26 million a year. Can they do that? I don't know. That's why I say the guy we're going to talk about later, Okamoto, the Japanese kid coming over, it just got posted today. That's probably more realistic of an option. Certainly nowhere near the track record, especially not at Major League Baseball, that the Polar Bear has. And I would love to have Alonso in the middle of that lineup. That would be awesome. But someone, unless he really wants to come here, someone else will offer him more money than the Padres will.
Yeah, that feels like a super long shot to me. Hopefully, you could get him here, and he likes San Diego and would be interested in playing here.
Remember, he went to Florida. He likes warm climates.
Also a Boris client. Those guys don't typically leave much money on the table. So I can't. Yeah, I would be pretty close to stunned. Okamoto, 30 years old. I guess he will be next year.
Yep.
Like you said, just posted today. And that'll be another, again, a position of need. First baseman, 41 homers in 2023, 39 in 2021.
6 straight years of 30 home runs in the MPB.
There you go. And also the fact that he's like a little bit older, he's not one of these guys that comes when they're on the younger side of things. There's obviously going to be an adjustment, but hopefully that helps ease the adjustment a little bit. So I don't, what does the contract look like for him? What do the Padres have to offer? Because again, you're going to end up in a bidding war with these guys. And I'm concerned about the Padres' ability to hang in a bidding war, given the commitments that they've already made. And then you're going to have to factor in kind of some of the uncertainty with the franchise now going forward on top of that.
Yeah, he can also play third base, which scares me. The Dodgers will jump in because they could certainly use a third base upgrade, even though they exercise $10 million on Max Muncy. But and then the Dodgers are legitimately talking about Kyle Tucker. So it's who cares? At this point, who cares? He's a dude who is going to be a lot more affordable than a guy like Alonso. The projections that I've seen are right somewhere anywhere in the 16 to 18 million a year range, which certainly much more affordable than Alonso. And he's going to give you a lot more pop than Luis Arraez is going to. So I think looking at his swing, he raked in the World Baseball Classic a couple years ago. So he's seen big league caliber pitching and done really well against it. His swing is compact. Like it's nice. It looks like he's got good hands. He's got good timing, gets his foot down, stays in the zone a long time, generates some nice power. That was a 30 home run power in Major League Baseball. Probably not, more like 20 to 25, but he's also going to hit you 275. He'll be on base. He's going to be a 30 double guy. I really like his swing a lot. I like his approach. I think he'd be a fantastic addition for the Padres.
Yeah. Just scanning through a piece that MLB Trade Rumors just wrote, a few things that jump out. Identical 11.3 strikeout and walk rate. So disciplined approach. And so, if you're kind of waiting for the contact and the power to come around, he's a guy that doesn't seem like he'll hurt you, in that regard. He's going to draw some walks. He's not going to be reckless at the plate. So, again, hopefully that helps in his transition. His career slash line, they say, compares quite favorably to the NPB slash lines of current big league sluggers Shohei Ohtani and Seiya Suzuki. So if you're looking for like some track record and not a comp, so to speak, but guys that have kind of made that transition, had some success to varying degrees, obviously. Potentially,
now, Ohtani was 23 when he came over. So if he'd stayed in Japan another 5 years, wipe all that away. It would have been obscene. Suzuki is probably a very good comp. Say it didn't have the greatest year this year. Heavy on the strikeouts, but as we saw against the Padres in the wild card series, if he gets into one, you can have your glove in the outfield ready because it's going to be flying in your general direction.
Yeah. I guess there is some concern what he does against, let's see, from Eric Longenhagen of Fangraphs, Okamoto's numbers against heaters greater than 94, quote, fall off a cliff. So something to keep an eye out for.
Well, also in Japan, you don't see a whole lot of those.
Yeah.
There's not a bunch of dudes over the throwing 95. If you see it every day with every at bat, you are going to get better at it, right? Remember, just because somebody hasn't done something does not mean that they cannot do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's like it's an off season where there's not, a ton of options. You got Alonso, Josh Naylor already got gobbled up, Luis Ariz out there, and some guys at third base as well. But the Padres' needs are so specific in this offseason, which probably not a bad thing. It's not like you're having to replace, at least as far as the lineup goes, a ton of different spots in line. We've gone into off seasons where like, okay, they have one outfielder. Who else? And it's not one of those years. They need a first baseman and they need power. Now, AJ was a little bit non-committal when he spoke on his Zoom about the need for power. And he's like, yeah, people say that, but we want a team that can hurt you in a variety of different ways. And so that gives me like a little bit of concern when, go scroll through Sarah Lang's tweets during the postseason about like teams that homered more in games were like 25-3 in the postseason, and all those different types of statistics that really demonstrated the importance of power in the playoffs. And much appreciation to Mike Schilt and grinding out at bats and situational hitting. That's important as well. You can avoid some of those situations though with a 2 or 3 run swing, which the Padres had in the bag once, and it was Manny Machado, and they won game 2. I hope they don't underscore how important that is. Because I think if there's one thing that 2025 showed us, they didn't have enough of that, and it ultimately cost them.
I think what you saw, 2 teams in the playoffs last year that were polar opposites, right? You got the Padres, who it's great to have the approach of string hits together, put stress on pitchers, station to station baseball, lots of doubles, triples, and the occasional home run. That's awesome until it's not. And the other side, you have the Yankees, who are so home run reliant that if you don't get anybody on base and then you're not Aaron Judge and nobody's seeing the ball out of the park, they're not getting on base at all. So you got to have somewhere in between, which is what made the Blue Jays so damn dangerous, is they can hit the ball out of the park, but they're always hitting, they don't hit a whole lot of solo home runs. They're hitting a bunch of 2-3 run homers because guys are getting on base and moving runners over. And then you got your 6th hitter who's able to hit the ball out of the ballpark with some consistency. So if you can find a lineup that gets you both ways, that's the the peak. That's optimal. That's what the Dodgers have. A bunch of guys who can get on base, but also hit the ball out of the ballpark. So the Blue Jays have. It's what the Mariners are putting together. You've got these types of lineups that can do that. The Padres have skewed. Yeah, it's great to have, as AJ said, a lineup that can hurt you up and down by singling, get on base, grind out at bats. But you can't rely on that exclusively. You need to have half the lineup at least with the ability to get you 3 runs with one swing of the bat. And that's simply what they don't have right now. And that's something they absolutely need to address. And if AJ tells you that's not the case, he's lying.
Blue Jays under the tutelage of first-year hitting coach and San Diego native David Popkins, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Bring him home.
Bring him home.
Bring him home. Yeah, Vladdy had one of his best years, since his rookie year. Bo Bichette had a bounce back year with him. George Springer had a bounce back year with him. I mean, it's Addison Barger became a thing with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's proof in that pudding.
Yeah, I don't know if you could lure him away from Toronto, but
come home to San Diego. I mean, come on.
Hopefully, that'd be nice. You'd need to, I think, probably, obviously, you'd have to pay him and then maybe give him a flashy title. Now, I think Ruben Niebla is probably going to get a flashy title, so you'd have to figure out what other flashy title and other responsibilities you could probably give the guy. But I know that generated some interest as the postseason went on, just the way they performed at the plate, and knowing that a San Diego guy was in part behind it. And so, that's a call I might make if I'm AJ Preller. Yeah. Might get a quick FU from whoever's on the other end of the phone from Toronto, but worth a shot.
Absolutely, it is. What is that? That saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take?
That's right.
Well, there you go. You put the call, which is why I'm still so ticked off that I didn't even call Bruce Bochy about the manager spot. Like, how do you, just for optics, you make the call and then you lie to us about why it didn't work out. But you make the call. Like,
you gotta make the call.
What are we doing?
There was a report from Robert Murray last week that the Padres do have some interest in bringing Luis Arraez back. Mm-hmm. And then it was funny. Mike Schilt was on MLB Network Radio earlier this week. And of course, the clip that got circulated was him just raving about Luis Arraez, which is like the least surprising thing ever. Mike Schilt, from his grave is going to be singing that guy's praises. Like, find you someone who loves you as much as Mike Schilt loves Luis Arraez. Yep. Gosh, love him as a guy, but I don't think I want any part of that. And remember last year we were talking about, the thumbs. Imagine what he's going to do now that the thumb is healthy and the thumb is all he won a batting title with a busted thumb, and then this year just not the same guy. And you had a stubborn manager who just wouldn't adapt to it, and that concerns me. And I would feel, and I think a lot of fans would feel a little bit more comfortable if that just wasn't a thing this year. Best of luck to you. All respect to Luis Arraez, but I don't know.
What if I said you could get a Luis Arraez back for $8 million a year?
I still want power. Is there, like, who else are you? Is that your only, that, like, that's it? That's your addition to?
No, I think that can't be your only addition. I'm saying with somebody who gives you a legitimate power option. And remember, they will have Ramon Laureano for a whole year. Hopefully he's able to replicate the career year that he had this last season. Hopefully Jackson Merrill doesn't miss massive amounts of time and then more at bats trying to adjust and just get himself back with all these injuries. Hopefully Fernando Tatis Jr. I can't even finish that sentence because I have no idea what you're going to get from him at bat to at bat. Hopefully Xander Bogaerts shows you what he was showing you when he was getting healthy, but then some freak injury happens to hit the guy. And hopefully Manny Machado stops being so combative and just hits 35 damn home runs and, is the guy that we are paying him to be. It's a lot of hope, but if that's the case, then you've got yourself a hell of an offense and there's your power potential. Yeah. But we have to operate on the assumption that it's not there. So if you can get Luis Arraez to be your first base, second base, DH kind of hybrid platoon kind of guy, and you're hitting him 7th and paying him $8 million a year, what would you say to that? Because I'd be like, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, for that price, I guess, I wouldn't necessarily hate it. But I just think, could you use that 8 million towards somebody that might scratch the power itch a little bit more? Could you use that 8 million towards the pitching staff? I think in a perfect world, if there's a little bit more to kind of spread around, then yeah, I think that'd be great. You add your power piece, you have Luis Arise, and then you can kind of figure it out one day to the next. I'm just worried that the wallet's too tight to for there to be room for that type of addition. Like they're gonna have to be so intentional about every addition that they make because there's only so much to go around. So I
Just think Kyle Schwarber's out.
Kyle Schwarber, which I would love. Gosh,
I would love Schwarb's here. Oh my God.
that would be having seen what he's done at Petco Park, 2022 and other points. Man, that would be incredible.
That ball hit in the upper deck. Did I tell the story about David Ortiz taking batting practice here?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so that ball that Kyle Schwarber hit in the upper deck in right field was the first ball ever hit in the upper deck in right field at Petco Park. Not just in a game, like ever hit there. In fact, I was here when the Red Sox were here. It was like 2013, 24, right in there. Like David Ortiz was in his prime, right? And he was trying in batting practice. He was trying to get one up there because he'd heard nobody's hit one up there. He couldn't get there. He disappears into the dugout, goes in the clubhouse, comes back out with an aluminum bat just so he could see if he can get one to the upper deck. He never got one in the upper deck during batting practice even.
Really?
So here comes Kyle Schwarber in the NLCS and hits a ball. I swear to God, that was the longest, hardest hit ball I've ever even heard of. And there are stories of like Mickey Mantle hitting balls 565 feet out of over the top of Yankee Stadium. Like so there's no video of any of this stuff. It was back in the 50s. But I've never heard of a ball being hit like that. And I've certainly never seen one fly like that until then. And I've seen when I was working in Arizona and Mark McGwire was all juiced up, he would come in there in batting practice and the panels would be open in the outfield. He'd be hitting balls through the panels. Still nothing like what Kyle Schwarber did at Petco Park into right field.
Yeah. I would love to see it. They won't be able to afford it, but a guy that popped up and I looked into and I thought, okay, there's something there, and I'm curious your thoughts. He's coming off of a down season.
I like that. He's less expensive.
He's 30, 2 years younger than almost exactly 2 years younger than Ryan O'Hearn. Silver Slugger, Gold Glove winner, 2023 World Series champion Nathaniel Lowe.
Mm-hmm.
He finished the year with Boston, got DFA'd earlier this week. On the year, 698 OPS, 307 on base, 18 homers, did not have a very good season. His career OPS plus is 116. And take his last 3 years before this season, and you're looking at like recent Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr. level kind of productivity. Had a 139 OPS plus in 2022. Let's see, 27 homers that year, 17 and 16 the years that followed. His on base in 2024 was 361. I don't know what the reason was for the huge drop off. Not a crazy slug, but a career OPS of 771. Like that's a useful player. Not 30 home run power probably at this point, but maybe he's a guy that can get you like another 20 from that left field spot. Again, Gold Glove, potential defense, World Series champion. That's a guy that might be of interest to me. And it's like, okay, if you're paying he or Luis Arise the same amount of money, who knows what the clubhouse fit is? Again, you have World Series experience. You're banking on the upside, but you're kind of banking on the upside with Luis Arise as well, because he's coming off a down year too.
Only 1 year older than Arise.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that was hitting in Texas. Hitting it that was at Globe Life. It wasn't at the old ballpark at Arlington that was outdoors and everything was flying all over the place at all times. I would be curious. I'd certainly not be mad at kicking the tires on that, because you're right. He does have a track record. Sometimes guys just, left-handed hitters in Boston typically do pretty well. Not sure what happened to him there, but also there are a lot of guys. I know Ted Williams used to say that he didn't see the ball very well at Fenway Park. from the left-handed batter's box. He
Mm.
didn't see the ball. He saw the ball much better on the road at Yankee Stadium. He used to like hitting it that much better. So some guys just don't see the ball all that well at certain ballparks. So maybe that's one of the reasons that his numbers dipped at Fenway is he couldn't see the ball as well. You get him in a place where obviously Petco Park, big old batter's eye in the background. You see the ball pretty well here. Not a real tough sun field for the most part. Maybe that gets him back into being, the guy that we saw when he was an all-star or all-star caliber player in Texas. Sometimes it's just the smallest thing with a player. If you can get him back to a 3.5 WAR player, we'd take that.
So okay, you bring up an interesting question. So looking at his career home and away splits, average away is 270, 13 points higher. His OPS is 785, 28 points higher than it was at home. Almost identical home run totals, obviously more at bats on the road. But he's a guy that seemingly performed well all over the place. So,
Actually, you know what, Darnay? I'm looking at his breakdown last year. He was better in Fenway because he was with the Nationals for 119 games.
Yes.
I forgot he was in Washington. Looking at that, 216 average, 665 OPS. With the Red Sox, he was at 280 and 790 over 34 games. Interesting, because that kind of tells me that maybe he's a guy who needs to be challenged because he's with the Rangers. They're competitive, obviously. He's with the Rays. They were competitive, obviously. He goes to Washington. What's there to play for? Nobody really cares. Then he goes to the Red Sox in the heat of a playoff race, and his numbers pop again. So if you get him in a competitive environment, maybe that's the difference.
Yeah. 22 at bats at Petco Park, 227 average, 593 OPS. Doesn't mean anything, but
was also facing Padres pitching, which is
it's also
pretty damn
facing
good.
Padres pitching, which has been good through the years. Let's see. Trade for Brandon Lowe and stick him at first from Juan, I believe that is.
Sure, why not?
Why not? Let's go for it.
What's it going to take to get him?
Quickly, because you mentioned Fernando, Craig Stammen on with Buster Olney was asked about, and I listened to that on the way in. Good conversation, hit on a few different topics, and the clip that made the rounds on social was his relationships with Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr.
Yeah, I played with them, both those two guys, for 3 or 4 years, and in the clubhouse with them. Me and Manny have played cards on every single plane flight the years that we played together, and so you build a relationship with them not only as like teammates, but build a relationship with them and doing other things besides baseball. And our families have become connected. Yaine, his wife, and my wife are good friends, and our relationship goes beyond baseball, and hopefully it becomes something that we both enjoy, that manager star player relationship where we can take each other to a place, maybe we couldn't go separately. And then Tatis is a generational player, someone that, like, when I was pitching, he'd make plays behind me. I just, like, in awe of the things he could do. And so having that respect for him and having seen him at his best, I think allows me to, hopefully push him to be at his best and not take some of the days where he's just like, maybe I'm going to take a day off today, but push him to be the best that he can be, be that MVP caliber player that we all think he could be.
I like that. I like that a lot. I also like the fact he has a Peter Seidler quote right behind him, which is.
Could you tell what?
I couldn't tell. I couldn't read what it was. No, the screen was too small for me here.
Yeah, that was interesting. I thought him playing cards with Manny, like the extent of their relationship together, kind of cool. The wives
are one thing there though. Manny will turn on people. Manny, if Manny's in a bad mood, Manny doesn't give a crap what relationship you have. Manny's a wild card when it comes to his emotional state. All right. If he didn't like you, if he gets ornery, whatever, he's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
The bigger part that I took out of that was acknowledging that Tatis doesn't go hard every day.
Yes.
That
Mhm.
is okay. Because you got, I mean, like I said, Schulte making excuses for everybody going, he's out there, he's winning a gold glove, basically like a broken leg. I love the guy, he's out there.
Mhm.
Whereas there's a difference between being out there and being present
Yes.
when you're actually playing a baseball game. So if Craig is able to honestly talk to Toddy and be like, pull your head out of your rear end, let's go.
Yeah.
You're better than this. And get him to do that, that is incredibly encouraging. Because I don't think I've ever heard anybody, actively, aside from maybe folks on this podcast, say, Toddy, what are you doing, buddy? We need you to step it up and get it in gear. And we're not going to make apologies or excuses for you anymore.
Yeah, and Tatis acknowledged that after the Game 3 loss. Like, he was, I thought, pretty honest about like the state of his game and some level of disappointment in himself. AJ Preller said when he was asked about the trade rumor that floated around, we know there's another level, we know there's an MVP level. And I think like Mike Schilt got here in 2022. We know what Fernando Tatis Jr. was doing in 2022. Then he arrives in 2023, and then he takes over the team in 2024. He wasn't around in 19, 20, 21. Craig Stammen was. And so as Craig Stammen said, he's seen that MVP version of Fernando Tatis Jr. and can hold him accountable to that because, again, he's seen it with his own eyes. And Mike Schilt experiences a opposing manager and just somebody who's obviously kind of surveying the league. But Stammen was in the clubhouse while Fernando Tatis Jr. was hitting 41 home runs. And so I think, like you said, kind of that push. I also thought it was interesting, that acknowledgement. And, hopefully, with a new manager and Craig being so honest, like, is that something that he kind of let slip? Did he after the fact, he's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have worded it that way. But I think
I don't care. Keep doing it.
Okay. Yeah, we appreciate
no. Cat's out of the bag now, Craig. We now know that you're going to be honest with us in the media, and we're going to hold you to it.
That's right. And so I thought that little tidbit, I think, definitely jumped out, and hopefully there's something to that because, we can have the full Tatis conversation in another episode, but man, if they can get him back to that level, that unlocks a lot for this team. It's just figuring out that right push mentally, emotionally, whatever's going on to kind of, because as you've referenced so many times, what did he say during FanFest?
When his head is in the right place, he's second to none on the baseball field.
And his head was not in the right place beyond May 2nd. Maybe it was because he got plunked on the wrist and that caused things to kind of go from there. Maybe it was off-field stuff, but it was frustrating to hear him say that and then not follow that up this year. It's like,
the first month he did. The first month he was incredible.
Yeah.
And then, but I remember talking to him later on in the year, August, and we got going in the clubhouse after games, and he'd be like, guys, can I do this sitting down? I'm really tired. Just
right. Yeah.
And it was just like, you're 26, dude. I'm 50. I should be tired.
Yeah.
Like this is, you can stand there and do an interview. You can stand there and answer questions for 3 minutes. It's like, so I think he was getting away with is not the right phrase, but for lack of a better phrase, he was allowed to skate in a lot of different areas. And I think that kind of just contributed pile more things on with nobody truly challenging and holding him accountable to be as great as he can be, because he's on the top 10 most purely talented ball players I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. And, to your point earlier, Mike Schilt was always so defensive, and you want to believe that his tone with the players is different than his tone with the media. And he was just like, wanted to portray himself as like, I got my guys' backs. But it also makes you concerned or gives you some concern that like, he doesn't see that this guy can be so much better, regardless of who it is. If it's Luis Ariz or Fernando Tatis Jr. or Manny when he's slumping, because it's always so positive. And look what he's doing, and like I see the way he's working, and look how he's impacting the game. And this guy's a baller. When there's certain players and instances where you're like, we've seen him at 100, he's at 80. Like, let's not mess around. Like, he needs that push to get to that extra 20 because we know what an impact that could make. And if that's the difference between Craig Stammen and Mike Schilt, he did say in an interview he'll be leaning on Mike Schilt a lot. A guy he has a lot of respect for. Hopefully do things his own way as a manager, but tapping in the experience of the guys that he's been around. And that's one of the things I said is like continuing the legacy. I think just kind of the attitude, the culture that Mike Schilt established, but I think there's aspects of the day in, day out part of the job that we wouldn't mind being a little bit different now under Craig Stammen.
Yeah, and also, by the way, also we're not trying to say like you need to be at 100% all the time, because
Sure,
162 games, it's physically impossible to do that. But we don't need is Toddy at 78% for a month and a half. Right. You got to be able to get there more often and more consistently than he does.
Yeah. Or if, I mean, he did that same thing before the All-Star break. In July? Like we talked to him before their last game and he was sitting down and just completely wiped. I mean, the last 4 months of the season, it appeared that way. And
well, I was wondering if he had something, if he had like a tapeworm or something, like he was like some sort of mononucleosis, or is just something like something was wrong medically with him. He just, like, that dude is just pure high energy all the time. And it was just like, it was
strange.
Gassed, like abnormally tired a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, I would recommend going back, and it's only about 13 minutes long, the actual conversation with Craig Stammen. There's some good stuff in there with he and Buster Olney as we're getting to know Craig Stammen, the manager. Any final thoughts before we say peace out until next week?
Padres fans, don't be alarmed at what the Dodgers are going to do this offseason, because they're going to do it, and we're all going to look at it. And at this point, just laugh. Sure, at this point, just go, that's that. Wow, okay, they did that. Great. Don't fret. We're going to have to find a way to beat them a different way, right? It's the Dodgers and everyone else in the league, Yankees and Mets included, are playing Moneyball at this point. So don't get concerned. Don't get concerned when the Dodgers sign 3 All-Stars and the Padres haven't done anything yet. I trust in AJ enough that the moves are coming, that the right moves are coming based on the financial structure that he has been given to stay within. It's going to be a little scary at times, but stay the course. Stay the course, and this is going to be, I think, another playoff caliber team again next year.
Good note to end on. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening, and we will catch you next Thursday.